Listen carefully. Most people are not losing in life because they are weak. They are losing because they are mentally exposed. They react too fast. They explain too much. They seek approval without realizing it. And because of that, they are easy to read, easy to influence, and easy to control. This audiobook is not about motivation. It is not about confidence tricks. It is about the mental rules that make certain people untouchable, psychologically unreachable, emotionally unmoved, and impossible to manipulate. If you apply these rules, your presence will change. People will treat you differently. And most importantly, you will never see yourself the same way again. Chapter 1: Stop explaining yourself. Most people talk too much. They explain their decisions. They justify their choices. They clarify their intentions. They defend their position before anyone even attacks it. And they don't realize what they're signaling. Over-explaining is not kindness. It is not clarity. It is not intelligence. It is insecurity leaking out in real time. When you explain yourself unnecessarily, you are subconsciously asking for permission. Permission to think the way you think. Permission to act the way you act. Permission to exist as you are. And power never asks for permission. Here is the rule you must understand early, because everything else in this audiobook builds on it. Explanation is negotiation, and power never negotiates its existence. Let that land. When you explain, you negotiate. When you negotiate, you lower your position. When you lower your position, others feel entitled to question you. That is why people interrupt you. That is why people challenge you. That is why people feel comfortable testing your boundaries, not because you are wrong, but because you signal that your stance is flexible. Mentally dominant individuals do not do this. They state, then they stand still. No extra words, no defensive tone, no emotional padding. They understand something most people never learn: the one who talks less controls the frame. Look at real leaders, true leaders, not performers. They do not over-clarify. They do not over-apologize. They do not over-contextualize their decisions. They say, this is the direction, and they stop. The silence does the rest of the work. Now contrast that with the average person. They say, I think maybe we should do this, and the reason is because I was considering the fact that last time they drowned their authority in words. And here's the brutal truth. People don't listen to explanations. They listen to certainty. Certainty is felt before it is understood. When you explain too much, you tell the other person, I am not fully confident you'll accept this. I am open to being talked out of this. I need you to be okay with me. That is psychological exposure. Let's talk about negotiations. In any negotiation, business, relationships, social dynamics, the weaker position always speaks more. Watch it closely. The nervous negotiator fills silence with logic. The powerful negotiator lets silence create pressure, because silence makes people uncomfortable, and uncomfortable people reveal themselves. This is why high-status individuals are often described as calm, grounded, or intimidating. Not because they are aggressive, but because they do not rush to explain. They are comfortable letting others sit with uncertainty. Now bring this into everyday life, at work, in relationships, with friends, with strangers. Someone questions your decision. You feel the impulse rise, that tightness in your chest, the urge to justify. That urge is fear, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being disliked, fear of losing approval. And the moment you obey that urge, you give up leverage. Instead, you must train a new response. State your position, then stop. No follow-up speech, no justification tour, no emotional overtones. Let them respond. This is not about being rude. This is about being rooted. There is a difference. Rudeness is reactive. Power is calm. Here's a simple behavioral instruction. Next time someone asks, why did you do that? Pause, then say one sentence, not 3, not 5. 1, then stop talking. If they push again, repeat yourself slightly shorter, not louder, not defensive, shorter. You are training them how to treat you. Most people fail here because silence feels like danger. They think silence means losing control. In reality, silence creates control, because whoever breaks the silence is usually the one seeking alignment, and alignment seeking is a lower position. Think about social situations. Someone challenges you publicly. The insecure person rushes to defend. The dominant person smiles, states once, and disengages. The room notices. They always notice, because confidence doesn't explain itself. Now let's dismantle a common excuse. People say, "But I'm just being clear." No, you're being anxious. Clarity does not require excess. Truth does not require defense. If your point is solid, it stands on its own. If it doesn't, explaining won't save it. Another excuse: "I don't want to be misunderstood." Here's the reality. You will always be misunderstood by someone. Trying to manage everyone's perception is mental slavery. Mentally dominant people accept this early. They decide who they are, they decide what they stand for, and they let the rest fall away. Now understand this: stopping explanation will feel uncomfortable at first. You will feel exposed. You will feel rude. You will feel like you're doing something wrong. That's conditioning breaking. You were trained to over-explain to survive socially. As a child, in school, in workplaces that reward compliance. This chapter is about unlearning that reflex, because once you stop explaining, something powerful happens. People begin to listen more carefully. They lean in. They ask better questions. Why? Because you are no longer handing them the answer wrapped in justification. You are standing in certainty, and certainty commands attention. Let's anchor this again. Explanation is negotiation, and power never negotiates its existence. Say it again internally. Every unnecessary explanation is a leak. Every pause you hold is a gain. This does not mean you become cold or robotic. It means your words become intentional. When you choose to explain, it is strategic, not emotional. That distinction matters. Strategic explanation builds influence. Emotional explanation destroys it. Here's your discipline for this chapter. For the next 7 days, notice every time you feel the urge to justify yourself. Pause instead of speaking. Deliver fewer words with more certainty. Let silence finish the sentence. You are not trying to dominate others. You are refusing to shrink yourself. And once you stop explaining, people stop probing, because probing only works on unstable ground. This chapter is the foundation. If you cannot hold your ground verbally, you will not hold it emotionally. If you cannot tolerate silence, you will not tolerate pressure. Master this and you become harder to move. You don't chase agreement. You don't beg for understanding. You don't negotiate your worth. You state, and you stand. You've now taken the first step toward becoming untouchable, but verbal restraint is only the surface. Because even if you say nothing, your emotions can still betray you. You've learned to control your words. Now, you must learn to control your reactions. Chapter 2, Emotional Control is the Real Authority. Authority is not volume. It is not aggression. It is not dominance displays or emotional force. Authority is control, and the highest form of control is emotional control. In every environment, arguments, relationships, negotiations, leadership, the first person to react emotionally gives up psychological ground. Always. That is not opinion. That is a law. The moment your emotions rise to the surface, you become readable, and what can be read can be used. This is why emotional people are easy to manipulate, not because they are weak, but because they are predictable. Here is the anchor you must burn into your mind. Stillness under pressure is read as power. Say it again. Stillness under pressure is read as power. When pressure hits and you remain calm, the other person feels it. They may not be able to explain it, but they sense it. Their nervous system registers you as stable, and stability commands respect. Now let's break the illusion. Most people believe authority comes from intensity, from passion. From force, they think raising their voice makes them heard. They think showing emotion proves conviction. In reality, emotional display is often compensation. The calm person in the room is the one everyone watches. Think about heated confrontations. Two people arguing. One is animated, defensive, reactive. The other is quiet. Still, measured, who feels in control, not the one talking, the one who does not need to. Silence in emotional moments is unsettling. It creates imbalance, and imbalance forces mistakes. This is why experienced negotiators slow down when the other side speeds up. They know whoever sets the tempo controls the exchange. Now apply this to your life. When someone insults you, your instinct is to fire back, to defend, to correct. That instinct is ego, and ego is loud because it is fragile. The moment you react emotionally, you tell the other person, "You got to me." And once they know that, they know where to press. This applies everywhere. In relationships, emotional reactions create power reversals. In business, they destroy leverage. In leadership, they erode trust. People follow those who are steady, not those who are explosive. Now let's be precise. Emotional control does not mean emotional suppression. You are not becoming numb, you are becoming disciplined. There is a difference. Suppression is avoidance. Control is choice. You feel the emotion, you register it. Then you decide if it deserves expression. Most people skip the decision phase. They go straight from stimulus to reaction. That is animal behavior. You are training a human response. Here is the mechanism. When pressure hits, your body reacts first. Heart rate rises, breath shortens, muscles tighten. This is where most people lose. They speak from the body instead of the mind. Your job is to interrupt that chain. Pause, 1 breath, 2 seconds. That pause is everything. Because in that pause, you regain authority. Now look at high-status individuals. They are not emotionless. They are unhurried. They do not rush to respond. They let moments breathe. This is not accidental. It is trained. Think of courtroom judges, military leaders, elite surgeons. They do not panic under pressure, not because pressure is absent, but because control is practiced. Stillness under pressure is read as power. Now let's talk about social tests. People test emotional control constantly. Sarcasm, disrespect, provocation. Most of it is subconscious. They want to see where your line is. If you snap, they learn you are reactive. If you explain emotionally, they learn you are defensive. If you stay calm, they learn to be careful. Calm forces recalibration. Here's a real-world example. Someone raises their voice at you in a meeting. The reactive person raises theirs back. The composed person lowers theirs. And suddenly, the room shifts. Everyone feels it. The loud person looks unstable. The calm person looks grounded. This is not about winning arguments. This is about winning position. Position determines how people treat you. Now let's dismantle another myth. People say, if I don't react, I'm letting them win. No, you are denying them control. Winning emotionally is not about scoring points. It is about not being moved. You don't need the last word. You need the highest ground. And the highest ground is emotional composure. Now let's talk about relationships. Emotional volatility kills attraction. It signals unpredictability. It creates insecurity. The person who can remain centered during conflict becomes the anchor. They are not cold. They are safe. Safety creates influence. Influence creates authority. In business, emotional reactions are even more expensive. Anger reveals urgency. Frustration reveals attachment. Defensiveness reveals weakness. This is why seasoned professionals stay neutral. They do not reveal stakes. They do not reveal pressure. They understand that whoever shows emotion reveals what matters most, and what matters most becomes leverage. So what do you do instead? You slow down. You speak less. You observe more. You let the other person spend emotional energy while you conserve yours. Energy conservation is power. Now here is your training protocol. For the next week, When triggered, do not speak immediately. Take one breath through the nose. Lower your tone, not raise it. Shorten your response. If you feel heat rising, say less, not more. That is discipline. You are not avoiding confrontation. You are mastering it. Eventually, something shifts. People stop pushing as hard. They stop escalating as quickly. Why? Because there is no payoff. They cannot move you. And people do not play games they cannot win. Let's anchor this again. Stillness under pressure is read as power. Pressure reveals everything. It reveals who is in control. It reveals who is reacting. It reveals who leads and who follows. You do not need to dominate others. You need to dominate yourself. That is real authority. If you cannot control your emotions, someone else will. They will trigger you. They will steer you. They will dictate the interaction. But when you stay still, you take back the wheel. This chapter builds directly on the last. You stopped explaining yourself. Now you stop exposing yourself emotionally. Words and emotions are the two main access points people use to control you. You've closed one door. Now you're sealing the second. But there is another leak most people ignore. Need, the need to be liked. The need to be chosen, the need to be validated, and need is visible, even when you say nothing. You've learned to control your words. You've learned to control your emotions. Now you must learn to control your attachment, because the one who needs less always wins. Chapter 3, the one who needs less wins. Need is visible. Long before you say a word, long before you make a request, long before you admit it even to yourself. Need leaks through tone, through timing, through behavior, and once it leaks, leverage is gone. Here is the rule you must internalize. The less you need, the more control you have. This rule governs dating, business, friendships, social hierarchies, every human interaction where power is exchanged. Need is not weakness in intention. It is weakness in position. The moment you need an outcome, the outcome controls you. Most people don't realize this because they confuse need with desire. They say, I just really want this. No, you need it. And need changes how you show up. Your voice tightens. Your behavior accelerates. Your standards bend. People feel this instantly. They may not articulate it, but their nervous system reads it as imbalance. And imbalance invites dominance. Look at dating. The person who needs the relationship more loses frame. They text faster. They explain more. They tolerate behavior they wouldn't otherwise accept. They think they're being accommodating. They're being exposed. The detached person sets the pace, not by manipulation, by independence. They are fine either way, and that energy is unmistakable. People are drawn to those who don't need them, not because they are cold, but because they are complete. Now look at the workplace. The employee who needs approval becomes easy to exploit. They overwork, they overjustify, they hesitate to set boundaries. Their competence is overshadowed by their dependence. Meanwhile, the employee who could walk away is treated differently, not because they threaten, but because they don't cling. Need makes you small, detachment makes you solid. Now let's strip the illusion further. Most need is not about survival, it's about identity. You need the outcome because it validates you. You need the response because it confirms your worth. You need the win because without it, you feel exposed. That is internal instability, and unstable people are easy to move. The world does not reward need, it exploits it. Here's the hard truth. If losing an outcome scares you, you are already compromised, because fear of loss dictates behavior, and dictated behavior is not chosen behavior. The one who needs less can wait. The one who needs less can say no. The one who needs less can walk away. And those are the three pillars of control: waiting, refusal, exit. Most people have none. They rush, they comply, they stay too long. Because they are afraid of what happens without the outcome. This chapter is about removing that fear. Let's talk about social hierarchies. Status is not claimed, it is assumed. An assumption comes from self-sufficiency. High-status individuals do not scramble, They don't chase rooms. They don't force inclusion. They don't overperform for acceptance. They are selective. Selection is power. Why? Because selection implies options, and options erase need. This is why scarcity increases value, not artificial scarcity, internal scarcity. When you don't need others to fill you, others feel drawn to you. Because you are not pulling from them. You are standing on your own ground. Now let's talk behaviorally. Need shows up in timing. You respond too fast. You follow up too much. You check in when silence would be stronger. You think speed equals interest. In reality, speed often equals anxiety. The person who can wait is the person with leverage. Waiting communicates abundance, not arrogance. Abundance. It says, I am not dependent on this moment. That message is felt. Now here's where people get it wrong. They try to act detached. They delay responses artificially. They withhold strategically. They pretend not to care. That is still need, just disguised. True detachment is internal. It is knowing that you will be fine regardless. That knowledge changes everything. Your body language relaxes. Your tone steadies. Your decisions sharpen. You stop negotiating against yourself. Now let's get practical. How do you reduce need? You build options. Options are oxygen. In dating, that means a full life, not fixation. In business, that means skills, not desperation. In social settings, that means self-respect, not approval chasing. When your life is narrow, outcomes feel huge. When your life is wide, outcomes feel manageable. Widen your life. That is the real work. Another discipline. Stop fantasizing outcome. Fantasizing inflates emotional investment. You create a future that hasn't happened, then you cling to it. When reality doesn't cooperate, you panic. Stay present. Desire outcome. Don't live in them. Now listen carefully. Needing less does not mean wanting nothing. It means wanting without attachment. Attachment distorts perception. You ignore red flags. You tolerate disrespect. You justify inconsistency. Why? Because you are afraid to lose the imagined reward. Detachment restores clarity. Clarity restores standards. Standards restore power. Here's a rule to apply immediately. If you feel yourself lowering standards to keep something, stop. That feeling is need, and need is expensive. It costs you dignity. It costs you leverage. It costs you self-respect. No outcome is worth that. The irony. When you stop needing, outcomes come easier, because pressure repels, calm attracts. People want to be chosen by someone who doesn't need to choose them. Now anchor this again. The less you need, the more control you have. Control of self, control of pace, control of choice. This chapter sits at the center of the book. You stopped explaining yourself. You controlled your emotional reactions. Now you are removing the final internal leash. Need. When you remove need, manipulation stops working. People can't rush you. They can't guilt you. They can't bait you with approval. Because you are not hungry, you are grounded. This doesn't make you ruthless. It makes you free. Freedom is the ultimate leverage. And once you taste it, you will never go back to begging, silently or otherwise, for outcomes. You don't chase, you choose, but there is still one more exposure point. Even when you say little, even when you feel calm, even when you need nothing, your emotions can still be visible if you broadcast them. Mood, energy, inner turbulence, that visibility gives people information, and information creates leverage. You've reduced need. Now you must learn concealment, not secrecy, control. Chapter 4, Never reveal your inner weather. Your emotions are information, and information is leverage. Most people give it away freely. They broadcast their mood. They announce their stress. They narrate their inner chaos. They think they're being honest. They're being exposed. Here is the rule that separates mentally dominant individuals from the rest. Privacy is protection. Mystery is power. Say it again. Privacy is protection. Mystery is power. Your inner weather, your emotions, doubts, frustrations, excitement, is not meant for public consumption. Not because emotions are bad, but because visibility creates vulnerability. When people know how you feel, they know how to move you. This chapter is about becoming unreadable, not fake, not cold, unreadable. Mentally dominant people experience emotions deeply. They just don't advertise them. They understand something most people learn too late. The world does not reward emotional transparency. It rewards emotional stability. Let's get specific. Most people walk into rooms wearing their internal state on their face. Bad day? Everyone knows. Anxious? Obvious. Excited? Leaking everywhere. This creates a pattern. Others begin to time you, predict you, work around your moods. That is not respect. That is management. High-level individuals are not managed emotionally. They are consistent. Consistency creates authority. Think about strategic leaders. Crisis hits, pressure spikes, chaos everywhere. They do not mirror the chaos. They slow down. Their tone remains steady. Their expression remains neutral. Their decisions remain deliberate. Why? Because panic spreads faster than solutions. And calm is contagious. People look to the most emotionally stable person in the room. Always, that person becomes the reference point. Now look at the opposite. The leader who vents, complains, emotionally unloads. They may feel relief in the moment, but they lose something far more valuable: confidence. Because when people sense emotional turbulence at the top, they lose trust. Not trust in character, trust in control. Control is what people follow. Now let's bring this closer to home. Every time you overshare how you're feeling, you train people to see you as emotionally accessible. That sounds positive. Until it's used against you. Someone knows you're stressed, they apply pressure. Someone knows you're insecure, they test boundaries. Someone knows you're excited, they delay. Information always shifts power. This is why seasoned negotiators reveal nothing, not because they are dishonest, but because they are disciplined. They know timing matters. They know visibility matters. They choose what to reveal and when. Most people reveal automatically. That is the problem. Here's the distinction you must understand. Vulnerability is earned. Exposure is careless. Sharing selectively with trusted individuals is strength. Broadcasting emotions to everyone is weakness. This chapter is not telling you to isolate. It is telling you to filter. Your inner world is not a group chat. Now let's talk about mood broadcasting. Statements like, "I'm just exhausted today. I'm really overwhelmed. I'm not in a good headspace." These seem harmless. They are not. They lower your perceived stability. And stability is the foundation of authority. People don't want to lean on someone who is already leaning. They want someone solid. This applies in relationships too. Constantly sharing emotional fluctuations creates imbalance. Your partner becomes your regulator. That shifts dynamics. Strength is not emotional silence. Strength is emotional containment. You process emotions privately. You express them intentionally. That is maturity. Now let's dismantle another illusion. People say, if I don't express how I feel, I'm being fake. No, you're being strategic. Not every truth needs to be shared immediately. Not every feeling deserves an audience. Truth without timing is self-sabotage. Timing is wisdom. Mentally dominant individuals understand this intuitively. They feel everything. They show little. That doesn't make them detached. It makes them centered. Here's the behavioral shift you must make. Stop narrating your internal state. No more emotional commentary. Replace it with neutrality. Instead of "I'm stressed," say nothing, or say "I'm handling it." Instead of "I'm anxious," say "I'm focused." Instead of "I'm overwhelmed," say "I'm prioritizing." This is not lying. It is framing. You are choosing which signal to send. Signals shape perception. Perception shapes treatment. Now let's address a critical fear. What if people think I don't care? Good, let them wonder. Mystery creates respect. When people can't read you, they approach more carefully. Carefulness is a form of respect. Overfamiliarity kills authority. You don't need to be distant. You need to be composed. Now here's where most people fail. They mistake emotional expression for connection. They think oversharing creates closeness. In reality, closeness comes from shared values and consistent behavior, not emotional dumping. People trust those who are steady, not those who oscillate. Now let's anchor this again. Privacy is protection. Mystery is power. Your inner weather is private property. Guard it. This does not mean suppressing emotions. It means processing them off stage. Journal, walk, train, think, then return composed. Your composure is your armor. And armor is not worn to intimidate. It is worn to remain intact. Let's make this practical. For the next week, do not announce your mood. Do not vent impulsively. Do not emotionally narrate your day. Observe how people respond. They will begin to read you differently. More carefully, more respectfully, because uncertainty slows people down, and slowed people are less likely to manipulate. Now connect this to the previous chapters. You stopped explaining yourself. You controlled your emotional reactions. You reduced need. This chapter completes the external shield. Words, reactions, attachment, visibility, all controlled. You are becoming less accessible, not emotionally unavailable, but psychologically protected. That is what makes you untouchable. But there is still one habit that quietly destroys authority even in composed people. The need for validation, seeking approval, fishing for reassurance, checking reactions. It's subtle, and it's deadly to power. You've learned to guard your inner world. Now you must stop asking others to confirm your worth. Chapter 5. Stop seeking validation. It destroys authority. Validation is a trap. It feels harmless. It feels social. It feels human. But psychologically, it is submission. Here is the rule you must understand clearly. When you seek validation, you surrender position. Say it again. When you seek validation, you surrender position. Every time you look outward for approval, you place yourself below whoever you're asking, not intentionally, not consciously, but psychologically. And psychology is where authority is decided. Most people do not realize how often they seek validation. They do it with words. With tone, with timing, with body language. They ask, does that make sense? They check reactions mid-sentence. They soften statements to avoid discomfort. They think they're being polite. They're training others to see them as uncertain. And uncertainty does not lead. Authority does not ask to be agreed with. It states, then it allows disagreement. That distinction matters. Let's get something straight. Seeking validation is not the same as seeking feedback. Feedback is functional. Validation is emotional. Feedback improves outcomes. Validation soothes insecurity. One builds competence, the other erodes authority. Most people blur the two. They say they want input, but what they're really asking is, am I okay? Do you approve? Do you still like me? That question silently lowers their position. Look at the workplace. The employee who constantly checks in. Is this okay? Do you like this? Should I change it? They think they're being thorough. In reality, they're communicating dependence. Meanwhile, the respected employee delivers work. They say, here's the solution. And they stop. If adjustments are needed, they make them, without emotional weight. They don't fish for praise. And because they don't ask, they're taken more seriously. Now look at creators, the ones who constantly ask their audience what to think, who apologize for their opinions, who hedge every statement. They lose authority, not because they're wrong, but because they don't stand. Audiences follow conviction, not perfection. Validation seeking dilutes conviction. Now let's go deeper. Why do people seek validation? Because they outsource their self-worth. They don't trust their own judgment. They don't anchor internally, so they look outward. This creates a loop. The more validation you seek, the more you need. The more you need, the less you have. People sense this immediately. And when people sense need, they subconsciously elevate themselves above you, not out of cruelty, out of instinct. Human beings are wired to follow certainty. Now let's talk about peers and social settings. Watch the person who tells a story and scans faces mid-sentence. They are checking for laughter, approval, acceptance. That scan is visible. and the moment it happens, their status drops. The person who tells the story without checking, who lets it land or not, holds the frame. Frame control is everything. When you seek validation, you give up the frame. You let others decide how you should feel about what you just said or did. That is dangerous, because once someone else controls your emotional response, they control the interaction. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Most validation seeking is not verbal. It's behavioral, over-delivering to be liked, over-apologizing to smooth tension, over-explaining to avoid disagreement. All of it sends the same message: I need your approval to feel secure. That message erodes respect, even from people who care about you, especially from people who care about you, because they feel the imbalance. Now let's dismantle another myth. People say, if I don't seek validation, I'll seem arrogant. No, there is a difference between arrogance and self-sufficiency. Arrogance demands agreement. Self-sufficiency allows disagreement. Arrogant people need others to confirm their superiority. Secure people don't. The most grounded individuals are comfortable being misunderstood. They don't rush to correct perceptions. They don't chase consensus. They know who they are, and they let time reveal it. Here's a key shift you must make. Stop asking questions that are really please, instead of does that make sense? Say nothing instead of what do you think. When you already know your stance, say, this is my position. You can still invite discussion, but you don't seek reassurance. There is a difference between dialogue and dependence. Now let's make this practical. Here is a simple rule. If you already believe in what you're saying, do not ask for confirmation. State it. If feedback is needed, ask for specifics, not approval. Approval is emotional currency. Specifics are functional currency. One weakens you, the other sharpens you. Now let's anchor this again. When you seek validation, you surrender position. Every time, this does not mean you become rigid or uncoachable. It means you stop outsourcing your confidence. You decide first, then you listen, not the other way around. This chapter connects directly to the previous ones. You stopped explaining yourself. You controlled your emotions. You reduced need. You guarded your inner world. Validation seeking is the final internal lake, because even if you say little, feel calm, and reveal nothing, if you still need approval, people will feel it, and they will position themselves above you. Remove that need. Stand by your choices. Let others react however they react. Their reaction is information, not a verdict. Now here is your discipline. For the next week, do not ask for approval. Do not fish for reassurance. Do not soften your stance to be liked. Observe what happens. You will feel discomfort. That discomfort is withdrawal. You are detoxing from external validation. On the other side of that discomfort is authority, quiet authority, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. Once you stop seeking validation, people begin to offer it freely, because they sense you don't require it, and what is not required becomes valuable. You are no longer chasing respect. You are becoming someone it naturally attaches to. This chapter completes the internal foundation, but now we move into a more advanced weapon, one that doesn't rely on words, emotions, or approval, one that makes people reveal themselves while you remain protected. Silence. You've stopped explaining. You've controlled emotion. You've eliminated need. You've guarded your inner world. You've stopped seeking validation. Now you will learn how to use absence as influence. Chapter 6. Silence is a psychological weapon. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is pressure, and pressure reveals everything. Most people are afraid of silence. They rush to fill it. They talk to relieve it. They explain to escape it. And in doing so, they surrender control. Here is the rule you must internalize. Silence creates pressure. Pressure creates mistakes. Say it again. Silence creates pressure. Pressure creates mistakes. If you learn nothing else from this chapter, learn this. Whoever controls silence controls the interaction, because silence forces a response. And whoever responds first usually reveals more than they should. Most people speak to reduce discomfort. They feel tension rising and they try to smooth it over with words. That instinct is weakness, not moral weakness, psychological weakness, because discomfort is leverage. And leverage belongs to the person who can tolerate it. Let's start with negotiations. The inexperienced negotiator talks, they justify prices, they explain terms, they fill gaps with logic. The experienced negotiator listens, they state their position, then they go silent, and something interesting happens. The other side starts talking. They clarify, they backtrack, they reveal constraints. Why? Because silence makes people nervous, and nervous people overexpose themselves. This is not manipulation. This is human psychology. Silence creates a mirror. People project into it. Now look at arguments. When emotions are high, silence feels unbearable. The reactive person needs to defend, needs to correct, needs to win. The composed person pauses. They don't interrupt. They don't escalate. They let the other person exhaust themselves. And in that exhaustion, the truth slips out. Tone changes. Logic breaks. Insecurity shows. Silence doesn't weaken your position. It strengthens it because it gives the other person room to reveal theirs. Now let's bring this into social settings. Someone makes a comment meant to provoke you. A jab, a test, a subtle insult. Most people respond immediately. They laugh nervously. They explain. They fire back emotionally. All of those reactions reward the provocation. Silence does not. Silence forces the provocateur to sit with what they just said. It makes the moment awkward, and awkwardness redirects power. Often they will walk it back, clarify, apologize, not because you demanded it, but because silence made them uncomfortable. This is why silence is feared. It shifts the burden. Now here's where people get confused. They think silence is passive. It is not. Passive silence is avoidance. Strategic silence is action. The difference is intention. You are not going silent because you are afraid. You are going silent because you are composed. That difference is felt. People can sense when silence is weak, and they can sense when it is strong. Strong silence has presence behind it. Weak silence has retreat. So how do you cultivate strong silence? By removing the need to be understood immediately, by letting your words stand without reinforcement, by trusting that you don't need to fill every gap. Let's connect this to earlier chapters. You stopped explaining yourself. You controlled your emotional reactions. You reduced need. You stopped seeking validation. Silence is the natural extension of all four. If you still need approval, silence will feel unbearable. If you still need control, silence will feel risky. But once those needs are gone, silence becomes effortless. Now let's get practical. Here's a simple exercise. Next time you state an opinion, stop talking. Don't follow up. Don't soften it. Don't justify. Let the other person respond. If they challenge you, pause again. Let them speak. You will notice something. They will either reveal insecurity, reveal aggression, reveal misunderstanding. All of which gives you information. Information you wouldn't get if you kept talking. Now let's talk about timing. Silence is most powerful immediately after a statement. You say what needs to be said, then you stop. That pause creates weight. It signals confidence. People instinctively respect pauses. Because pauses suggest thoughtfulness. Rushing suggests anxiety. Now let's address a common fear. What if silence makes me look weak? It won't if your posture is calm, if your body language is steady, if your gaze is relaxed, if your presence is grounded. Silence paired with composure is strength. Silence paired with tension is submission. So this is not just about words, it's about presence. Your body must match your silence. Relax your shoulders, slow your breathing, unclench your jaw. These physical cues matter. They communicate that you are not threatened. Now let's talk about social hierarchies again. High-status individuals use silence naturally. They don't rush to respond. They don't compete for airtime. They don't feel invisible if they're not speaking, because their sense of importance is internal. Low-status individuals talk to be seen. High-status individuals are seen even when they don't talk. Silence amplifies presence when presence is real. Now anchor this again. Silence creates pressure. Pressure creates mistakes. This is not about embarrassing others. It's about letting reality surface. When people are allowed to talk uninterrupted, they expose priorities. They expose fears. They expose intentions. Silence turns you into an observer instead of a participant, and observers have advantage. Now here's another critical point. Silence protects you. Words can be twisted, misquoted, used against you. Silence cannot. Every unnecessary word is a risk. This is why powerful people speak less. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they choose precision over volume. Let's make this behavioral. For the next week, after you speak, pause. Do not rush to fill gaps. Let others talk themselves into clarity or confusion. Observe how often people reveal more than they intended. You will be surprised, and you will start to enjoy silence, because silence gives you space. Space to think, space to choose, space to respond, not react. This chapter marks a shift. Up until now, you've been removing weaknesses, explaining, reacting, needing. Oversharing, validation seeking. Silence is not removal, it is addition. It adds gravity, it adds presence, it adds psychological weight, and when combined with everything you've learned so far, it makes you difficult to manipulate, but there is still a deeper layer. Silence works best when you are not emotionally invested in the outcome. Attachment can still betray you, even in silence. If you care too much, it shows. Your stillness becomes strained. So next, we must address attachment itself, not to people, not to approval, but to outcomes. You've learned to control words, emotions, need, visibility, validation, silence. Now you must learn how to let go of results without becoming indifferent, because detachment is where real control lives. Chapter 7: Detach from Outcomes to Gain Control. Attachment is a leash. The more tightly you grip an outcome, the more it controls you. Your decisions shift, your emotions spike, your behavior changes, and people notice. Here is the rule you must burn into your thinking. Attachment makes you predictable. Detachment makes you dangerous. Say it again. Attachment makes you predictable. Detachment makes you dangerous. When you care too much about a specific result, your mind narrows. You stop seeing options. You stop thinking clearly. You start negotiating against yourself. That is not power. That is pressure. Detachment, on the other hand, widens your perspective. You see alternatives. You see timing. You see leverage, because you are not emotionally trapped inside one outcome. This chapter is not about apathy. It is about control. Most people hear detachment and think it means not caring. Wrong. Detachment means caring without being owned by the outcome. You still want results, you still pursue goals, you still commit effort, but your identity is not tied to whether it works out. That distinction changes everything. Let's start with judgment. Emotional attachment clouds judgment. When you are attached, you ignore red flags. You rush decisions. You tolerate what you shouldn't. Why? Because you fear losing the outcome more than losing your standards. That fear makes you easy to manipulate. Anyone who senses your attachment can steer you. They delay, they withhold, they pressure. And you bend. Detachment removes that leverage. If you can walk away, you cannot be controlled. Now look at real-world scenarios. In business negotiations, the person who needs the deal loses. They concede more. They reveal more. They settle faster. The person who can walk away holds power. Not because they threaten, because they are free. Freedom is leverage. In relationships, attachment creates imbalance. If one person needs the relationship more, they give up ground. They text faster. They apologize more. They tolerate more. Meanwhile, the more detached partner sets the pace, not by manipulation, by independence. The same pattern appears everywhere: sales, friendships, social hierarchies, leadership. The one who can walk away controls the dynamic. Now let's be clear. Detachment does not mean abandoning goals. It means refusing to let goals own your emotional state. You still show up, you still commit, you still act. But if the outcome fails, you remain stable. Stability is power. Instability is exposure. Here's what attachment looks like in daily behavior: overthinking messages, obsessing over responses, replaying scenarios, second-guessing decisions. All of that is attachment. Your mind loops because it's afraid of losing the outcome. That fear makes you predictable, and predictable people are easy to read. Detachment breaks the loop. You act, you decide, you move forward, no emotional hostage take. Now let's connect this to earlier chapters. You stopped explaining yourself. You controlled emotional reactions. You reduced need. You guarded your inner world. You stopped seeking validation. You learned to use silence. But even with all that, if you are emotionally attached to results, your behavior will still leak. Your silence becomes tense. Your composure becomes forced. Your presence becomes strained. People feel that. Detachment makes your calm real, not performed. Now here's the psychological shift you must make. Stop tying your worth to outcomes. You are not your win. You are not your loss. You are not your result. You are your discipline, your standards, your behavior. Outcomes are feedback, not identity. Once you internalize that, pressure weakens. You stop needing to win every interaction. You start focusing on making clean decisions. Clean decisions beat emotional decisions. Every time. Let's talk about pressure. Pressure increases when stakes feel personal. If failure feels like a threat to your ego, attachment skyrockets. But when you treat outcomes as experiments, pressure drops. You test, you learn, you adjust. No emotional meltdown. This mindset sharpens decision-making because your mind is not hijacked by fear. Now here's a real-world example. Imagine two people going for a promotion. Person A needs it desperately. Their self-worth is tied to it. Person B wants it but knows they'll be fine without it. Who performs better under pressure? Person B. Why? Because their mind is freer. They speak more clearly. They negotiate more firmly. They accept feedback without collapsing. Detachment creates composure. Composure creates authority. Now let's address a critical misunderstanding. Detachment is not avoidance. You don't stop trying. You stop clinging. Clinging creates distortion. Detachment creates clarity. Clarity allows better timing, better boundaries, better choices. This is what makes detachment dangerous. Not in a harmful way. In a strategic way, you become unpredictable. Because you are no longer emotionally locked into one path. If something doesn't align, you pivot. If something disrespects you, you walk. If something fails, you recalibrate. No drama, no panic, no collapse. That makes people cautious around you because they cannot control you with outcome. Now let's make this practical. Here is a discipline to practice. Before pursuing any goal, ask yourself, if this doesn't work, will I still be okay? If the answer is no, you are too attached. Your job is to build a mindset where the answer becomes yes. You can want deeply, but you must be able to stand without it. Another practice: when you feel anxiety about an outcome, widen your options. Ask, what else could I pursue? What else could matter? What other paths exist? Options weaken attachment. Attachment thrives in narrow lives. Build a wide life, more goals, more skills, more sources of fulfillment. The wider your world, the less any single outcome controls you. Now anchor this again. Attachment makes you predictable. Detachment makes you dangerous. Predictable people get played. Detached people get respected, because respect is rooted in independence. People sense when you are not emotionally trapped. They sense when you cannot be rushed. They sense when you are willing to walk. That changes how they treat you. Now here's the deeper truth. Detachment is not about others. It's about mastering yourself. If someone can control your emotional state by controlling outcomes, they control you. But if outcomes no longer own your emotions, you own yourself. Self-ownership is the foundation of being untouchable. This chapter is a turning point. You've removed external vulnerabilities. Now you're removing the final internal one, attachment. Once attachment weakens, manipulation loses power. People can't bait you. They can't rush you. They can't dangle rewards to steer you. You become centered, but there is still one more layer. Even detached people can be predictable. Even calm people can be read. Predictability is another form of exposure. If people know how you will react, what you will say, and what you will do, they can plan around you. So next, we sharpen something deeper. Unpredictability, not chaos. Control. You've learned to detach from outcomes. Now you must learn to become impossible to read. Chapter 8. Become impossible to read. Predictability is exposure. Every habitual reaction, every patterned response, every telegraphed intention, all of it can be read, and what can be read can be manipulated. Here is the law you must burn into your mind. What cannot be read cannot be controlled. Say it again. What cannot be read cannot be controlled. Most people live openly. Their faces, their words, their body language, they all reveal the same predictable map. Anger flashes, excitement leaks, desire shows, and those who pay attention take advantage. This chapter is about becoming unreadable, not mysterious in a vague way, not passive, deliberately unpredictable. Unpredictable people create respect. Unpredictable people inspire caution. Unpredictable people hold the psychological upper hand. Let's start with simple examples. A skilled negotiator does not signal frustration. They do not reveal impatience. They do not indicate desperation. They pause, they adjust tone, they speak just enough to create clarity, but you never know what they are thinking next, and that uncertainty keeps the other party cautious. Compare that to the reactive negotiator. Every raised eyebrow, every hurried sentence, every sigh reveals pressure. Predictable, readable, vulnerable, unpredictable individuals do not feed others predictions. They vary pacing, they vary tone, they vary behavior. Even small shifts matter. Someone asks, "Will you commit now?" Predictable response, "Yes, absolutely." Unreadable response, pause, slight smile, a neutral tone, "I'm considering all options." Notice how it shifts power. The questioner becomes cautious. They wonder, they hesitate, they lose automatic control. This works everywhere, in social settings, in business, in relationships. Predictability signals weakness. Unpredictability signals mastery. Now let's dissect why this works. Humans are wired to read patterns. We anticipate reactions. We plan around them. Predictable people allow others to script their moves. Unpredictable people refuse to follow the script. That refusal is authority. But being unpredictable is not the same as being inconsistent. There is a disciplined core beneath it. Your principles, your standards, your identity, they remain fixed. Your behavior varies strategically around those fixed points. This is subtle but powerful. A person who maintains core values but shifts presentation creates ambiguity. Ambiguity is tension. Tension is influence. Now let's make this practical. Step 1. Stop telegraphing reactions. If you receive bad news, pause, don't grimace immediately. If someone attempts provocation, do not react instantly. If someone compliments or praises, acknowledge but do not overemphasize. Step 2. Vary timing. Pause longer than expected before responding. Occasionally interject with minimal words. Let others wonder what you are thinking. Step 3. Control your body. Keep posture relaxed. Adjust facial expressions deliberately, not automatically. Slight shifts in stance, gaze, or tone keep people uncertain. Now let's connect this to the chapters before. You stopped explaining yourself. You controlled emotional reactions. You reduced need. You guarded your inner world. You stopped seeking validation. You used silence as leverage. You detached from outcomes. Unpredictability is the culmination. You are now learning to stop being readable, to stop being a map others can navigate, to become a force they must approach carefully. Even detachment alone is readable if you move always the same way. Even silence alone is readable if used in predictable patterns. Unpredictability turns these tools into power. Let's talk about social dynamics. Someone tests you repeatedly. They push the same buttons. They try to provoke the same reaction. Predictable person reacts identically every time. Unreadable person, variable response. Calm, observant. Slightly different every time. The tester stops. They hesitate. They respect boundaries without being told. This is how subtle authority works. Now, here's the psychological trick most people miss. Being impossible to read is not about pretending. It is about mastering yourself so thoroughly that you can choose how you present every signal. Your internal state is disciplined. Your expression is deliberate. Your timing is intentional. When you do this, people no longer steer you. They adjust to you. That is influence. That is dominance without aggression. That is mental control. Now let's make it actionable. Practice this daily. 1. Observe your reactions. Notice what you reveal unintentionally. Every sigh, every frown, every nervous gesture. 2. Interrupt automatic responses. Pause before reacting emotionally or verbally. Allow control to take precedence over habit. 3. Vary delivery. Change timing, tone, expression, and body language strategically. Keep others uncertain, not confused. Clear intent, unpredictable execution. 4. Anchor internally. Your principles, ethics, and standards remain fixed. Your external variability is a tool, not chaos. Remember, unpredictability is a weapon only when grounded in self-mastery. It is ineffective if you are reactive or desperate. It is ineffective if you are unprincipled or weak. It is powerful only when deliberate. Now let's explore relationships and influence. In dating, unpredictability increases attraction, not by being manipulative, by being self-contained and autonomous. In leadership, unpredictability commands attention, not by creating fear, by creating presence and gravitas. In negotiations, unpredictability shifts leverage, not by bluffing, by controlling what is revealed and when. Anchor this principle again. What cannot be read cannot be controlled. The unreadable individual sets the tempo. They define boundaries silently. They direct interactions with presence alone. Now here's your next challenge. Combine everything you've learned, words used sparingly, emotions controlled, need reduced, inner world protected, validation ignored, silence strategic, outcome attachment released. Then layer unpredictability on top. The result, psychological dominance without hostility, authority without aggression. Presence that cannot be ignored. This chapter transitions naturally into mastery over your environment, because once you are unreadable, predictable influence disappears. You can shape interactions effortlessly. You can guide outcomes without telegraphing intent, but there is one final level. Even the unreadable person must manage perception. Even the disciplined, silent individual must wield visibility strategically. The next chapter will teach you how to control the final frontier, how others see you, so your power is reinforced, not questioned. Chapter 9, Choose Response over Reaction. Reaction is a trap. It feels natural. It feels immediate. It feels justified, but natural is predictable. Immediate is readable. Justified is manipulable. Here is the principle that separates mental dominance from submission. Pause first. Power lives in the pause. Say it again, pause first. Power lives in the pause. Most people react. They insult back. They defend themselves. They justify. They escalate. They are automatic. They are predictable. They are exposed. Reaction is emotional. Response is deliberate. Reaction is pressure-driven. Response is strategy-driven. Reaction gives away leverage. Response maintains it. Let's break this down with examples. Imagine someone insults you. The reactive person fires back immediately. Tone spikes. Words sharpen. Emotion bleeds. The situation escalates. The reactive person feels vindicated momentarily, but they are now readable, predictable, exposed. The responsive person pauses. They observe. They assess. They choose words intentionally. Maybe they ignore the insult. Maybe they answer once calmly. Maybe they redirect the conversation. Every option maintains control. Every option preserves power. This is not weakness. This is mastery. Now think about disrespect in the workplace. A colleague undermines your idea. A reactive person snaps, corrects, or justifies. Authority is lost. Control is surrendered. A responsive person pauses, processes information, selects an action that reinforces their position. Maybe they ask clarifying questions. Maybe they make a concise statement that redirects attention. Maybe they let silence do the work. In every scenario, pause creates space. Space for clarity, space for leverage, space to be untouchable. Now let's get into emotional pressure. Someone tries to trigger you, maybe a peer, a client, or even a family member. The reactive mind jumps, immediate anger, immediate defense, immediate need to correct. The responsive mind does the opposite. Pause first, observe, breathe, evaluate motives, evaluate options. This pause disarms manipulators, it frustrates instigators, it signals control. Remember the anchor phrase, pause first. Power lives in the pause. Pause is not hesitation. Pause is choice. Pause is dominance expressed subtly. Now here's why most people fail. They confuse pause with weakness. They fear the moment of stillness. They fill it with words to reassure themselves. That reassurance is submission. True power is comfortable with silence. True authority tolerates the gap. True dominance thrives in stillness before action. Now let's connect this to prior chapters. You stopped explaining yourself. You controlled emotional reactions. You reduced need. You guarded your inner world. You stopped seeking validation. You used silence strategically. You detached from outcomes. You became unreadable. Now you are learning to choose, not reflexively act. Choosing response over reaction is the final internal filter. Every word, every action, every decision flows through it. Here's how to practice immediately. Step 1. Recognize triggers. Insults, criticism, rejection, pressure test. Step 2. Pause before reacting. Even a 2-second pause resets your nervous system. Even a slow inhale creates control. Even counting silently gives you leverage over impulse. Step 3. Evaluate outcomes. Ask, what do I want here? Ask, which action reinforces my position? Ask, what shows composure and authority? Step 4. Execute deliberately. Speak once clearly if needed. Redirect conversation if strategic. Use silence if the situation benefits. Remember, reaction is fast. Response is precise. Fast satisfies impulse. Precise controls perception. Here's a real-world scenario. You're in a meeting. A coworker interrupts rudely. Reactive response, snap, cut them off, get defensive. Outcome, emotional exposure, lost credibility, reduced influence. Responsive approach, pause, breathe, maintain posture, then address interruption calmly. Outcome, composure, authority, subtle psychological advantage. This principle applies everywhere, in dating, in business, in friendships, in public life. Reactive patterns are visible to everyone. Responsive patterns are respected by everyone. Now let's explore long-term effects. Every reactive moment builds a habit. Every reaction signals predictability. Predictability signals control by others. Every deliberate response builds a pattern. Every pause signals unpredictability. Unpredictability signals autonomy. Anchor this mentally. Pause first. Power lives in the pause. It is deceptively simple. It is easy to understand. It is extremely hard to practice consistently. Most fail not from ignorance, but from impatience, from emotional reflex, from old neural patterns. Break them. one pause at a time, one choice at a time, one situation at a time. Now a final practical drill. For 1 week, identify moments where you normally react. Physically pause before any verbal or emotional response. Decide deliberately whether to respond, how, and why. Log your feelings after each encounter. Observe the difference in outcomes and perception. You will feel awkward at first. You will feel pressure to act. This is normal. It is the beginning of mastery. This is the final internal alignment before external authority is cemented. You've already removed the need to explain, controlled your emotional responses, reduced need and attachment, guarded your inner world, leveraged silence, become unreadable. Choosing response over reaction integrates all of these disciplines. It ensures every action flows from control, not impulse. Every word reinforces authority. Every pause builds presence. Now, once mastered, you are not only untouchable mentally, you are untouchable behaviorally. You become a figure people notice, respect, and hesitate to challenge. But there is still one final layer. Even the responsive, composed, unreadable individual must manage how others see them. Perception is the final frontier of influence. How people perceive your choices, timing, and authority will determine whether your internal mastery translates into external control. Chapter 10. Build an internal frame that never breaks. Your frame is your foundation, not your wealth, not your status, not the people around you. Your frame is how you see yourself, how you value yourself, how you act when the world pushes back. Here is the law that separates untouchable individuals from everyone else. When your frame is internal, nothing external can shake you. Say it again. When your frame is internal, nothing external can shake you. Most people live externally. They base their worth on reactions, on validation, on praise, on criticism. Every word, every glance, every micro-expression can shift them, and when the world moves, they move with it. That is vulnerability. That is control surrendered. An internal frame changes everything. It means your self-worth is anchored in yourself. Your decisions are rooted in your principles. Your behavior flows from discipline, not approval. The mentally dominant do not require external validation. They do not crumble under criticism. They do not inflate with praise. They are steady, always steady, calm in chaos, present in pressure, consistent in unpredictability. This is your goal. This is the untouchable mindset. Let's examine why external frames fail. If your worth depends on what others think, compliments inflate your ego, but temporarily. Criticism crushes your confidence, but permanently in that moment. Influence becomes a battle between others' perception and your stability. You are not free, you are reactive. You are predictable. External frames are chains. Internal frames are armor. Now let's get practical. Step 1. Anchor your self-worth internally. Define standards for yourself. Decide what behavior aligns with your values. Measure yourself by your principles, not by others' opinions. Step 2. Decouple from outcome. Praise or criticism does not redefine you. Success or failure does not dictate your worth. Your evaluation comes first from within. Step 3. Practice exposure to external pressure. Deliberately encounter criticism or differing opinions. Observe your reaction. Do not adjust your frame. Just observe, adapt if necessary, but do not waver. Step 4. Reinforce internal dialogue. Repeat affirmations rooted in principles, not desires. Oh, I act with discipline. Oh, I measure success by my standards. Oh, I am steady regardless of circumstance. This creates mental scaffolding. When the world pushes, you do not bend. When chaos comes, you do not falter. When influence is tested, you do not break. Now let's link this to the previous chapters. You stopped explaining yourself. You controlled emotions. You reduced need. You guarded your inner world. You stopped seeking validation. You used silence strategically. You detached from outcomes. You became unreadable. You responded deliberately. All these steps support your frame. Without an internal frame, all of these habits are surface level. They appear powerful. They appear untouchable. But one real test, a severe insult, a betrayal, a high-stakes failure, and everything collapses. Internal frame makes all previous lessons permanent. It cements authority internally and externally. Let's explore real-world examples. A high-level executive faces public criticism. Their internal frame remains steady. They do not react emotionally. They do not justify. They do not seek approval. A socially dominant individual is ignored at an event. They do not flinch. They do not overcompensate. They maintain posture, presence, and composure. Notice the common factor. Their frame is internal. It is unshakable. Here, why internal frames are rare. People conflate external success with worth. People rely on social feedback to gauge competence. People fear being wrong or rejected. An internal frame eliminates all of this. You measure yourself by truth, by discipline, by your chosen standards. Nothing external alters that. Praise does not inflate. Criticism does not diminish. Now let's talk about practicing this daily. One morning anchoring. Before the day starts, remind yourself of your principles. Internalize your standards. Decide your behavior independent of others. 2 midday reality checks. Encounter feedback, pressure, or judgment. Observe emotions without reacting. Re-anchor to your internal frame. 3 evening reflection. Review the day's interactions. Note where your frame held. Note where old external habits crept in. Adjust discipline for tomorrow. The key is repetition. Internal frames are built by consistent reinforcement. Not once, not occasionally, daily. Now let's add another layer. An internal frame enables clarity. When the world shifts, you do not waver. When others panic, you think. When pressure mounts, you act deliberately. Internal frame is both shield and lens. It protects your mind and clarifies perception. Here's a practical mental exercise. Imagine a situation that would normally rattle you. Visualize yourself steady, unshaken, principled. Notice how your choices differ. Repeat until composure becomes automatic. Now connect this to influence. People unconsciously recognize an internal frame. They sense independence. They sense steadiness. They sense authority. They hesitate to challenge. They respect boundaries. They follow quietly. This is power without aggression, presence without volume, influence without effort. Anchor again. When your frame is internal, nothing external can shake you. This is the final lesson of mental dominance. All prior skills, silence, detachment, unreadability, deliberate response, feed into it. They are pillars supporting the internal structure. Without the frame, the structure collapses under pressure. With the frame, it becomes unshakable. The ultimate test is consistent. Criticism, betrayal, high-stakes decisions, chaos. Your frame absorbs, your discipline directs, your composure projects authority. Now for the final actionable takeaway. For the next month, anchor your self-worth internally daily. Practice neutrality in the face of judgment. Observe your reactions, pause, and realign. Protect your internal world as fiercely as your external presence. The world will test you. Pressure will rise. People will attempt to destabilize you, and you will remain unmoved because your frame is internal, because nothing external can shake you, because you are untouchable. This is the culmination of every lesson in this audiobook. You have learned to stop explaining yourself, control your emotions, reduce neediness, guard your inner world, stop seeking validation, use silence strategically, detach from outcomes, become unreadable, choose responses deliberately. Now you have built the ultimate mental structure, an internal frame that cannot break. This is your armor. This is your leverage. This is your untouchable self. Your next step is to live it relentlessly. Every interaction, every decision, every moment. And that is how the untouchable mind is forged. You now understand the rules, not opinions, not tactics. Rules: stop explaining yourself, control your emotions, need less, reveal nothing unnecessarily, use silence, detach from outcomes, choose response over reaction. These are not behaviors, they are standards, and from this moment forward, every interaction is a test. A test of whether you will react or remain composed. A test of whether you will seek approval or stand firm. A test of whether you will expose yourself or remain untouchable. The challenge is simple: apply one rule today, then another tomorrow. And never again allow yourself to be psychologically handled, rushed, or diminished. Master these mental rules, and you will not need to demand respect. It will be assumed.